The prison room was silent as the man sat in an orange jumpsuit, knowing these were his final moments alive. His only request wasn't mercy, it was his dog. When the door opened and the dog stepped inside, no one expected what happened next. Daniel Carter sat on a wooden chair, his wrists resting on his knees, staring at the cold green floor beneath him. The orange prison uniform felt heavier than iron. Around him, guards stood in a straight line, faces blank, trained not to feel. The clock on the wall ticked louder than it should have. Each second felt like a hammer striking his chest. Daniel had been on death row for 7 years, 7 years of appeals denied, letters unanswered, hope slowly suffocating. He had replayed the night of the crime thousands of times in his mind. He knew the truth, but truth hadn't saved him. Evidence had been rushed. Witnesses had lied. And now, the state was ready to erase him. Strangely, Daniel wasn't crying. Fear had burned itself out days ago. What remained was grief. Not for his life, but for the one soul he had failed to protect. Max. When the warden asked for his final request, Daniel didn't hesitate. His voice cracked as he spoke. I just want to see my dog one last time. Some guards exchanged glances. Others looked away. No one expected such a simple wish from a man about to die. But none of them knew what that dog meant, or what he was about to do. Max wasn't always strong and disciplined. Once, he had been a starving stray, limping through an alley behind a closed warehouse. Daniel had found him on the worst night of his life, soaked in rain, broken, and alone. Daniel shared his last meal. Max offered his trust. From that moment on, they were inseparable. Max followed Daniel everywhere, slept beside his bed, guarded him like a shadow. When Daniel was arrested, Max chased the police car until his paws bled on the pavement. After that, Max was taken to a shelter. Families tried to adopt him. Trainers tried to work with him. But Max refused to move on. Every night, he sat by the gate, ears alert, waiting for footsteps that never came. Over time, his sadness turned into discipline. The shelter partnered with AK-9 volunteer unit, and Max learned scent detection and alert training. But even as he learned commands, his heart waited for only one voice. 7 years later, when Max was loaded into a van for a final prison visit, his tail wagged for the first time in years. He knew. The steel door creaked open. Daniel lifted his head and froze. Max stood in the doorway, muscles tense, eyes locked onto Daniel's face. For one breathless second, neither of them moved. Then Max let out a low whine that echoed through the room and ran forward. Daniel dropped to his knees as the dog pressed against him, whining, licking, trembling. The guards watched in silence as a condemned man held his dog like a lifeline. I'm sorry, boy, Daniel whispered. I never stopped loving you. But then Max's behavior changed. He stopped licking. His ears stood straight. He pulled back slightly and began sniffing Daniel's clothes, slowly, intensely. His nose moved to Daniel's jacket, then to his hands, then back again. A deep growl rumbled in his chest. One guard stepped forward. What's he doing? Max barked sharply and began pawing at Daniel's sleeve, then turned and barked toward the guards, pacing anxiously. This isn't normal, another guard said. Daniel looked confused. He's trained, he said quietly. Search alerts. The room shifted. The sorrow vanished. Something else had entered, something dangerous. Suspicion. Search him, the warden ordered. The guards hesitated. This wasn't protocol. But Max barked again, louder, sharper, scratching insistently at the inside of Daniel's jacket. A guard carefully reached inside the lining and felt something unnatural. He cut the stitching open. Out fell a small, sealed data chip. The room went dead silent. What is that? The warden demanded. Daniel shook his head. I swear, I've never seen it. Max sat down immediately, alert posture locked, eyes focused. His job was done. The execution was halted instantly. Phones rang. Officials rushed in. The data chip was taken to forensic review while Daniel was escorted back to a holding room, heart racing, mind spinning. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, a guard returned, his face pale. The footage, it's surveillance video, he said, from a warehouse near the crime scene. It was never logged into evidence. The video showed another man, another face, another weapon. The truth hit like lightning. Daniel hadn't committed the crime. The execution chamber remained empty. For the first time in 7 years, hope breathed again. The footage changed everything. Prosecutors reviewed it in disbelief. Timelines collapsed. Witness statements unraveled. The man on the screen was someone else entirely, someone who had vanished shortly after the crime. Within hours, emergency court orders were filed. The execution warrant was revoked. News spread through the prison like wildfire. When they unlocked Daniel's cuffs, his legs gave out. He collapsed, overwhelmed, gasping for air he never thought he'd breathe again. "It's over," Officer Harris said softly. "You're free." Daniel looked down at Max, who sat calmly beside him, tail thumping once against the floor. "You saved me," Daniel whispered, tears streaming. "You never gave up on me." Max leaned forward and pressed his forehead against Daniel's chest, the same way he had done years ago when Daniel was broken and alone. Justice hadn't come from the system. It had come on 4 legs, with a loyal heart and an unbreakable memory. Months later, the prison gates opened again, but this time, Daniel walked out alive. The sun felt unreal. The air tasted different. Max walked beside him, leash loose, head high. No words were needed. A man who lost everything had been given his life back, not by power, money, or luck, but by loyalty. Because while humans forget, dogs remember. And sometimes, love doesn't just save the heart. It saves a life.